Exactly 12 months, Donald Trump has gone from completely dominating the political moment to being buried by it. Donald Trump today finding himself on the defensive when it comes to his administration's betrayal of a campaign pledge to release the Epstein files. Further complicating Trump's political peril, there are brand new questions about Trump's relationship with the deceased sex offender and trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. That is thanks to 23,000 pages, an avalanche of new information, and unstoppable momentum right now on Capitol Hill for legislation that would force the release of the files that Team Trump has tried so hard to keep hidden. We are learning more today from Epstein's communications with his friends and associates. In one email from 2019, Jeffrey Epstein writes, quote, "Trump knew of it and came to my house many times during that period. He never got a massage," end quote. We should know we don't know exactly what Epstein is alleging Trump knew. MSNBC has not independently verified the allegations made by Jeffrey Epstein in these emails. Epstein wrote that message, though, just months before he was arrested on sex trafficking charges. Now, here's what Trump said after Jeffrey Epstein's arrest.
No, I had no idea. I had no idea. I haven't spoken to him in many, many years, but I did have no idea.
It doesn't exactly square with what his spokeswoman, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, said yesterday.
Jeffrey Epstein was a member at Mar-a-Lago until President Trump kicked him out because Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile and he was a creep.
Karoline Leavitt says, quote, Trump kicked him out because Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile and a creep, end quote. Trump, young girls, I had no idea. Either, but not both, right? Did Trump know or did he not know? Epstein survivor Annie Farmer tells MSNBC this in a statement, quote, "The more information that comes out about Jeffrey Epstein, the more questions we are left with. Survivors deserve more than a trickle of information. It is time to pass the Epstein Files Transparency Act and for a full release of the Epstein files. The estimated 1,000 women and girls who were harmed by Epstein and his associates deserve full transparency, as do the American people. A vote to release the Epstein files will take place next week, much earlier than expected. It is expected to pass in the House. Republican Thomas Massie, who has been the bill's most prominent Republican backer, had a message for his colleagues. Quote, Donald Trump isn't going to be president forever, but your vote goes down in history. Watch this.
Well, I've already had a couple Republicans tell my office privately that they're going to vote for it, and I think that could snowball. I mean, you know, the deal for Republicans on this vote is that Trump will protect you if you vote the wrong way. In other words, if you vote to cover up for pedophiles, you've got cover in a Republican primary. But I would remind my colleagues that this vote is going to be on your record for longer than Trump is going to be president. And what are you going to do in 2028 and 2030 when you're in a debate, either with a Republican or a Democrat, and they say, how can we trust you? You covered up for a pedophile back in, 2025.
Donald Trump barreling toward a major political reckoning amid brand new revelations from the estate of Jeffrey Epstein is where we start today with some of our most favorite reporters and friends. Investigative journalist Vicky Ward is here. She profiled Jeffrey Epstein for Vanity Fair in 2003 and has been covering this story ever since. Joining us at the table, former SDNY Criminal Division Deputy Chief, MSNBC legal analyst Christy Greenberg's here, and my friend and colleague, contributing host of Pod Save America, MSNBC senior political analyst Alex Wagner is back. Vicky, let me start with you on the substance of the emails first. What did you learn, or what did the public learn, maybe even if it was something you had reported earlier, for the first time yesterday in this release of emails from Jeffrey Epstein's estate?
Well, I think we got confirmation of something I'm not shocked by. I'm not sure anyone else is. That obviously Donald Trump, it would seem, knew of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse of minors. I thought the email that he sent Ghislaine Maxwell in 2011, which was when Virginia Giuffre first came forward and gave an interview to the Mail on Sunday about Epstein and about Prince Andrew. I thought that was very interesting. He referred to Trump as the dog that didn't bark. And he also referenced Michael Reiter, who was the Palm Beach police chief. And he then said, "I'm getting there, ... That was the most interesting email to me, because it's been reported on my Substack. I've interviewed Michael Wolff. We saw it in another email that was released yesterday. We don't know what caused the rift between Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump, but Jeffrey Epstein, it seems clear, believed that Trump had done something strange financially when he bought that piece of property outside of Palm Beach in 2004. He writes in the email, Trump had no money, and yet he bought a mansion that Epstein had wanted for $45 million, and he sold it 2 or 3 years later for a multiple of about 3 to a Russian oligarch who I've met and who was going through a complicated divorce at the same time. And so, I'm looking for threads that could possibly connect the dots around that.
Vicki, we are cautious in taking things that the White House press secretary says from the podium and fact-checking them. But on a story like this, we don't always have all of the information that someone who's covered the Epstein scandal has. Is there any evidence anywhere? Has Trump himself ever asserted that he, quote, kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago because he was a pedophile and creep, end quote?
Yes, that's exactly what he said to Sam Nunberg, who was one of his first political advisors back in the late 2014, early 15, which is the second time that Virginia Giuffre made her allegations, which she had by then put into a class action lawsuit. She raised them a second time, and there were more names in it. And that became the beginning of all the litigation it took years, but it wound up being the backbone of the criminal lawsuits against first Jeffrey Epstein and then against Ghislaine Maxwell. I will also say, Nicole, there is, the acknowledgement from Epstein in an email that Trump knew about the girls. It's been reported, most people don't know this, it's been reported by the lawyer of the girls himself, Brad Edwards, who was the first lawyer to really come and represent the victims after that plea deal, interviewed Donald Trump in 2009. And Trump was very quick to come to the phone with him. And he told Brad Edwards that he had been inside Epstein's house in Palm Beach and that he had looked out the window and he had seen a bunch of young girls in the swimming pool, and that he'd been bewildered because what Epstein had said to Donald Trump was that they were in some sort of mentorship program and he was mentoring them. And Donald Trump himself said to Brad Edwards in 2009 that he thought that was very strange. So make that of what you will.
I'm just trying to piece together what's been publicly uttered. So in 2009, he says to a lawyer for victims that Epstein is a mentor to young girls, but he saw them swimming in his pool. And then you're saying the relationship falls apart over a real estate deal earlier than that. But Trump's rationale, once Virginia Giuffre makes her accusation in 2014, becomes what his press secretary is saying, that he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago because he was a, quote, pedophile and creep?
Yes, and it's not clear to me whether it was because of Virginia Roberts. Based on my reporting, my understanding is that he kicked Jeffrey Epstein out later than that. And it was actually over someone else I don't know who that was. It was actually maybe over the daughter of a member. That is all I know. But I would also say this, that kind of adds to the complications around all of this. Jeffrey Epstein believed that Donald Trump was the person who went to the Palm Beach police in the first place about them, that the feud over this house got so bad that it was Donald Trump who turned him in. And I had always thought that that sounded kind of absurd. You know, why would Trump do that? But the other thing that really struck me reading all of these emails, particularly from Jeffrey Epstein's last 4 or 5 years during Trump's first administration, is he seems obsessed with Donald Trump. He seems obsessed with getting access. He can't get to Trump himself, so he gets access through Michael Wolff, who was sitting in the corridor outside the Oval Office for the first year of the Trump administration because it was so chaotic. I mean, that's how he managed to write his first book. Epstein befriends Steve Bannon. And if you look at all these emails, whether it's with Larry Summers or Catherine Rummeler, now the general counsel of Goldman Sachs, I mean, he's almost demented the way he goes on and on about Trump. And, you know, it's very puzzling, Nicole. I have to say, it makes me wonder, what is it that Donald Trump so desperately doesn't want us to know that could be in the Epstein files?